Hello everybody, welcome to the first week of the live essay course. I'm here to introduce your teacher to you. This is Quentin. Quentin, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, my name's Quentin, and I went to Cambridge University about 10 years ago now. And since then, I've been doing lots of teaching and lots of writing. And today I'm here to tell you about both of those things.
So it should be a very exciting course. You're going to learn how to write exactly like a Cambridge or Oxford student, the better university. So I hope you enjoy today's first lesson. If you have any comments, questions, then please ask your teachers, leave us a little comment on the stream, but enjoy.
Thanks, SJ. Okay, welcome to week one. So, yes, first thing is a little intro to me. My name's Quentin, as it says on the screen. It's spelled like that. And just a little introduction to the kind of things you'll be needing. You need something to write on and something to write with. That's the basic tools that we need. So a paper or an iPad or tablet, something like that, to write on, and then a pencil or something to write with. Basically, that's the main thing you need. Hopefully, you've got a little pack in front of you where you'll be able to see sort of the same things that I'm showing you on the screen now. But if there's stuff you don't understand, or if there are questions that you have at the end of this session, or at any point, then you can ask your teacher in the academy, and they'll feed that back to us so we can make that clear for you. Okay, thanks very much. So let's start now. Hopefully you saw Tuesday's video where I took you through the basics of essay structure. And hopefully you remember more or less what we talked about there, which was introduction, 2 minutes, so not long. Don't overthink it. Just write down next to each one. What do you remember about each one? What would your definition be of each of them? Okay, so 2 minutes, off you go. Write down next to each one what you think it is. Pace wise. Okay. Okay, so that was a quick 2 minutes. Sorry about that. So let's go through them. Hopefully you remember that the introduction is the first part of an essay. So that's the crucial thing to remember about the introduction. It's the first part. It's where you introduce your ideas. You introduce what you're going to say in your essay. So you respond to the question and you say, this is what I'm going to say. Now we'll go into the introductions more next week. Then, main body paragraph. Second part, but also the main part of the essay. If you remember from the video, we were talking about the main body paragraphs like the main course in a meal. This is the big bit, the main bit. This is where you have like most of your argument, most of the essay is going to be in the main body paragraphs. And again, in the next few weeks, we're going to look at exactly what you need to be putting in that part of your essay. Okay, and finally, the conclusion. Now, this is the final part of the essay, and it's where the argument that you introduced in the introduction and then developed in the main part of your essay, this is where you wrap it up. You bring it all together and you say at the end, this is what I think. So that's your conclusion. So together, these three elements make your essay. Between the three of them, you need all three for a complete essay. Okay. So how did you get on? Were you in the right ballpark? Were you close to getting everything right? Or are there some things you need to review? As we do these lessons, I'm going to be giving you tasks like I just did, and then we'll be going through them together. So part of this is up to you. I need you to look through your answers and be honest with yourself about how much you need to learn and which bits you need to get better at, which bits you already know really well. So that's something I'm going to be needing from you over the course of the next year or so. Okay. So one thing I wanted to talk about this week was signposting. So a signpost, like we have down in the bottom of the screen here, a signpost is something that allows you to show the reader where you are in the essay. Now, signposts are really helpful for a reader because they make it clear which bit of the essay we're in, and they're helpful for you because they help you to structure your essay. So, signposting is divided into two main parts. We have linking words and phrases. So these are words and phrases that guide the reader through the essay. So when one of these phrases comes up, the reader will know exactly where they are. And that's good. You want it to be clear. Being clear is a really key thing that I'll be talking about a lot and that I'm going to be asking you to do in all of your essays. The other one we have is what I'm going to call major signposts. So these are things where you're outlining your main arguments. So things like opening phrases, the beginning of your introduction, the beginning of your main paragraphs, the beginning of your conclusion, those are going to be big signposts to show the reader exactly where they are and also to restate what you think. Remember that the point of an essay is to say what you think about something. And at the beginning of introduction, main body paragraphs, and conclusions is your opportunity to make that clear to the reader. So these signposts are all about making things clear to the reader. Okay, so now it's your turn. I'm going to give you another 2 minutes, although it might not be quite 2 minutes. And now you can see behind me and hopefully in front of you as well, you've got a list of words and phrases. And what I want you to do is next to each one, I want you to put a little mark, a little letter to indicate where you think this phrase would go in an essay. So you've got options. You've got the I for introduction, MBP, not MVP like the NBA, but MBP for main body paragraph, and then C for conclusion. So next to each one, I'll give you an example. So we look at that first one, it says in conclusion. So hopefully it's pretty obvious that next to that one, we want an I. Okay, now it's over to you. 2 minutes. Look down at the list, and next to each one, I want you to put a letter, depending on where you think it goes in your essay. All right, off you go. Okay, and we're back. I told you it was a quick 2 minutes. So, how did you get on? Um, I don't know if you noticed this little thing in the corner of the screen, but there were some trick ones. Don't know if you noticed. There were some trick ones because they could be used in more than one of um, the parts of the essay. So we're going to go through those quickly. Now, let's have a look. So in conclusion, obviously that's going to be in the conclusion. Furthermore, now that word further tells you that we're looking into something more fully. We're going deeper into the argument. That's a classic word that we might use in a main body paragraph. So that was MBP. Well done to anyone who wrote that down. Firstly, now that sounds like it should be an introduction, and it might be. So we could use it in our introduction, but we could also use it in the first paragraph, especially of the main body paragraphs. So that one could be both. So give yourself a tick if you got either I or MVP. To further understand the role. So one thing I want you to do as we go through these classes, you're going to start to notice patterns, links between things, and I want you to start noticing those patterns and applying them as we go. So one pattern you might see here already is that we've got furthermore and further understand, to further understand the role of. Those two things are linked. Both of them are about going deeper into the argument. So that one is also going to be an MVP. But that's something I want you to keep doing. Look for links, look for patterns, because they're going to really help you as you go on. English is a subject where there isn't a sort of clear right and wrong answer a lot of the time, but what we can do to help ourselves is spot links, spot patterns, and apply those as we go. And this is one of them. Okay, next one. The importance of X. Now, if some of you are confused by this, I'll just explain that. If I put something like that in square brackets, an X in square brackets, that means it's standing in for something that could change depending on what the essay is. So normally this X that you see in square brackets is going to be basically the subject of the essay. The key thing is that the words around it, the phrase around it, that's a phrase that you could use in lots of different essays. The X is going to change depending on the essay. Everything around it you could use in different essays. So that one, the importance is also shown by, I want you to notice there's a key word there as well, also. Again, we're getting further into the text. We're getting further into the argument. So anything about getting further in, it's going to be MBP, main body paragraph. To summarize. Summarizing is the kind of thing we're going to do in the conclusion, because that's when we bring together all the arguments and we go over what we've said already in the essay to remind the reader. A bit like if you remember in the video you watched earlier this week, at the end of the video, I did a kind of recap. I went over everything. That's exactly what we're doing here with this summary to summarize. So that's going to go in the conclusion. Next one. First, important to understand. Now, again, that's one of those ones where we could put that in the introduction or in main body paragraph. And again, notice the pattern. We've got first and firstly, and the answer is the same. Start keeping up with those links. Now, this essay will focus on next one. That's telling you what's going to happen. So that's introduction. In contrast, that's giving you an alternative view. Contrast is a really helpful word, by the way. Contrast means the opposite or a different angle, different opposite kind of angle. So that's going to be the kind of thing we're going to be looking at in the main part of the essay. So main body paragraph. And finally, to sum up, again, notice the link. Does that remind you of anything? we've got sum up, summarize. So again, they're linked, and that means that this is conclusion. So you've got the answers there. I'll try and clean this up a bit for you so you can just see the answers. Okay. So there you've got all the answers. How did you do? Have a look through and just see how you did, and also those patterns, those links. Very good. The last big thing I want to talk to you about today is paragraphs and the importance of paragraphs. Now, roughly, a paragraph is just something that separates different chunks of text. So when you are writing, you write as you go. The paragraph allows you to start a new thought, and again, it's about being clear. Remember I said that earlier, being clear is super important. Well, paragraphs are going to help you with clarity. They're going to help you be clear because they allow you to divide what you're writing into new thoughts. And that's going to help the reader a lot. And if you help the reader, they're more likely to like your essay. So they make it easier to read. They show that your thoughts are well organized. They're your friend and the teacher's. Here's the trick for you. If you make the teacher happy, they're more likely to like your essay. If you make their life difficult by giving them a massive chunk of text that they find it hard to work out, they're not going to like that, and they're more likely to mark your essay down. So make them happy, organize your thoughts with paragraphs. Okay, I'm going to show you why they're so important right now. Have a look at this slide. There's a lot of writing on it, right? Too much. Way too much. And also, importantly, it's all smushed together. Smushed is an important English word. It's all cramped together. It's going to be hard for us to understand what the different thoughts are. We can read it, obviously, but it's hard to read. It's cramped together, and crucially, it's hard to tell when a new thought begins. It's not well organized, and if we tried to read this, we'd find it difficult. That puts us in a bad mood, and we're not going to like it as much. That's where paragraphs come in. So we're going to do the first one together, and then I'm going to ask you to have a look at one yourself. So let's look at the start of the essay. Where do you think the first part ends and the next begins? Now, to help you with this, I'm going to read it out, and I want you to think as I read, where does the first part end and the next begin? When's the first thought over? See if you can spot. Okay. The people who make a difference in your life come in all types. Some write on a chalkboard. Some wear a uniform. Some wear a suit and tie. For me, that person wore a tie with a Pizza Hut logo on it. I started working at Pizza Hut in December 1989 when I was a freshman in high school. Parents in my small western Colorado town encouraged teenagers to work in the service industry after school and on weekends. It kept us out of trouble. Having a job also kept me out of the house. I grew up mostly with my mother, and I never knew my biological father. My younger sister, younger brother, and I went through a series of stepfathers. My relationship with those men was almost always fraught, and I was always looking for reasons to be away from home. Okay, so where do you think the changes are? Where do you think the changes in thought are? Where should the different sections be in this little chunk? I would say we could divide this chunk into three. So there are two places where you could add a paragraph. Okay. Have a look through, see if you can spot where you think those are. I'm going to show you how I do it, and that's going to help you hopefully work out the second one. So the first one, I think we want to look somewhere around here. And I'll show you why. So we can see at the beginning, it's an introduction. He introduces us to the people who make a difference in your life. And he is talking generally. Some people do this, some people do that. And then he comes back, makes it specific. For me, that person wore a tie with a Pizza Hut logo on it. And then notice this. It gets really specific. I started working at Pizza Hut in December 1989. That's a change because before he's talking in general, he's introducing us to the ideas. And there he goes specific. He starts saying about a different, slightly different thing where he's talking about himself in a very specific time. He gives a date. Now, because of that change, we're going to add the paragraph here. And I mark it, I like to mark the paragraph with that kind of weird arrow thing, or well, you can see what I've done there. So I've put a little mark to show where I think the paragraph would go. So that's the first one. Now, for the second one, again, we need to start thinking about what he's saying. So he gives us the general intro, and we've marked that. Then he talks about when he starts working at Pizza Hut, and he talks about that until when does he stop talking about Pizza Hut, and when does he start talking about something else? I would say it's around here, because he's talking about why he got the job, and then he then moves on to a new thing, which is when he starts talking about when he grew up. So we've got general intro up here, general intro. Then we've got Pizza Hut. And then the last bit, if you notice, again, we're looking for links and patterns. Look at all these words we have. We've got father, we've got mother, sister, brother, stepfathers. All of those words, have a think, what are they to do with? They're all to do with the family, right? So this last chunk is clearly about the family. That means it's slightly different to the Pizza Hut bit, which means we want to separate it out. So we've got two options actually here. We could put it here, or we could put it here. Either of those will work. I did say it wasn't an exact science. Either of those could be fine, because they separate out the Pizza Hut bit, where he starts talking about him working there, from the family bit. Okay, let's see what that looks like when it's actually done for us and it's not all scribbled on like I've done. So there you go. If we've put in the first one there, and then the next one we've put in kept us out of trouble. Now, remember right at the beginning, we were looking at some keywords. And one of the keywords I told you to look out for was also. And we can see it here. Also is a good word because it's building on the last point, but it might also be that we're building on it with a new thought. Okay, so that word is a really helpful one. And it's building on the last sentence, but taking it in a new direction. And it's that new direction that means it's a new paragraph. If we were just building on it without going in a new direction, it would be continuing the same paragraph. Because it's taking it in a new direction from this kind of Pizza Hut introduction to the family stuff, which we spotted with all those family words, we know that that's the start of a new paragraph. Okay. Okay. Here's a big old chunk of text for you. And again, I want to give you a couple of minutes to have a look at where the new paragraphs are. Given that we don't have that much time, what we're going to do is we're going to go straight into the next part, actually, which is we're going to have a look together at the different sections so you understand a bit more about how this works. Okay, so I've highlighted it for you here to highlight the different chunks. So what I want you to do is read through them and notice where I've put a different colour. Why do you think I've made a separation there? Remember how I wrote a little title for each paragraph? So like introduction, Pizza Hut, family. What would your little titles be for each of these different colours? So have a read through them and see if you can give them little titles and see if you can understand why I've separated them the way I have. Okay, off you go. Okay, we're back. So, um, how did you get on? What did you think? Each new thought? Each new colour? Let's have a look. Firstly, just from a visual perspective, look at how much nicer that is to read. Compared to this, what we had before, big horrible chunk. Okay, then it's a bit nicer when there's colours, obviously. But here, with our paragraphs, it's nice and easy to read and we don't need to have lots of bright colours to confuse us. So this is what we want to be looking at. When your essay should look something like this, divided up into nice, easy to read paragraphs. So that's a big thing I want you to take away from today, the importance of paragraphs. They make my life easier and they will make your life easier as well as you're writing. Now, in terms of the titles of each section, how did you get on? So we already knew that the first one what we were looking at was family because of all those words about family. Now the next one, the trick, I'm going to give you this trick. The first line or the first sentence is going to be your key to knowing what this next paragraph is about. If it's well written, and this is something I want you to remember for yours, that first sentence of each paragraph is the key to understanding what the paragraph is about. And if you've written your essay clearly, that first sentence is always going to tell you what the next thing is about. So it's actually quite easy once you've worked that out because you know that this first one is going to be about the Pizza Hut. So we've gone from family to the specific Pizza Hut, the shop, the restaurant where he was working. So that's going to be about the old restaurant. I'm saying rest for speed there. The next one, on my first night. So the previous one, he was describing the old and rubbishy restaurant that he was working in. That seems like it was kind of falling apart. This one, he's talking specifically about the first night. So he's moved from a general description to a specific time. Notice that when you jump location or jump time, normally that means you start a new paragraph. Okay, and then again, at home. So we're jumping location, we're jumping place. So we jump from family to the old restaurant to the first night, a specific story about one night. And then finally we go back to at home. So we change place again. And I want you to really remember about that thing about the first sentence. We call it a topic sentence, and we'll go over it in more detail in the next few weeks. But a topic sentence is really important because it establishes, it tells the reader, this is what my next paragraph is about. And it's going to make it, again, much easier for them to understand and easier for you as well to know what you're writing about. So, again, make things clear, make things easy for yourself and for the teacher, for the person reading the essay. Okay, good. Now, every week, even this week where we're a bit cramped for time, I want you to do some writing. So, this week, most of the writing that you do is going to be at home as your homework. Yes, there is going to be homework. But we're going to go through it together and I'm going to show you what I want you to do. So, if you notice that essay we were just looking at was about the people who make a difference in your life. That first sentence, the people who make a difference in your life. That's what the essay was about. And now I want you to have a go. So the topic of our first ever essay that we're writing together, so it's very, very exciting, very important, is the people who make a difference. I want you to write about that in English, obviously. Now, I don't want you to worry too much about making it the perfect essay. It's only our first week together, so it's not going to be perfect. But there are some things I do want you to keep in mind based on the stuff that we've looked at so far. So what have we looked at so far? We've looked at introductions, main body paragraphs, conclusions. So I want you to start thinking about having those different sections. And we've also looked at paragraphs, right? So I want you, when you write, to think about when you start a new thought, that's when you start a new paragraph. So what I don't want is to get lots and lots of essays, which are just a big chunk of text where I'm having to like look through them all and I don't understand what's going on. I want you to divide up your thoughts. Now, it might be that you just write everything in a big splurge at the beginning. You put it all in like one massive chunk, and then you go through afterwards and divide it up. That's fine. But it's really important, but also quite easy, once you've finished writing, to just go back through and check your own work. That's something I'm going to be coming back to a lot. Checking your own work. There's so much that you can do before it even gets to a teacher to make sure your essay's in the best place it could be. So I want you to think about what you can do to make your essay better. And one of the easiest things you can do is just look at it and think about, does it look like this? Big chunk of text going to be hard to read. Or does it look like this? Lots of smaller chunks, easy to read. We might call them easy to digest. Again, coming back to that food idea that we had in the video. So, in terms of what you can write about, the people who make a difference, that's up to you. You could write about anyone, person, or people who make a big difference in your life. So it could be friends, it could be family, it could be sports team, could be a specific teammate, club leaders, coach, could be a stranger you only met once, but they made a big difference in your life. Could even be a pet. So people, I'm expanding people to also be animals, pets, anyone. But the thing I want you to think about, the thing that's going to make your essay interesting, is I want you to explain, more on that next week, I want you to explain why did that person or that animal, whatever it is that you choose, why did they make such a difference? Why do they keep making such a difference? So use the techniques we've been looking at, and you've got all of this stuff to help you. Yeah? All this stuff about paragraphs and about introduction, main bodies, and conclusions. All of that is here to help. But again, I don't want you to worry too much about getting it perfect. It's only our first week. I'm also interested in your thoughts and your ideas. The whole point of writing essays is to be able to write down your ideas in a clear and intelligent, let's say, a clear and intelligent way. That's what I'm here to help you with. So for this first week, that's your task. An essay on the people who make a difference. And I want you to keep in mind all of the things we've looked at so far. Okay, hopefully that doesn't sound like too much of an ask. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you write. So, goodbye. And thank you very much for tuning into our first session. I hope we can have many more sessions together. And as I said at the beginning, if you've got any questions or anything wasn't that clear, you've got some options. You've got the pack in front of you with the same slides that I've been showing you. You've got that similar in front of you, so you can look back through it. You've got the video from Tuesday, and you can look back through that if there was anything there that you weren't sure about. And you've also got the option to ask your teacher, and your teacher will be able to feed that back to me via the magic of the internet, and I'll be able to factor that in next week. So yeah, any questions or anything that isn't clear, please ask your teachers. And in the meantime, I will see you next week. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. Bye.